And thanks everybody for tuning in to this live stream. This is a YouTube exclusive. And today we'll be talking about opportunity and how you too should indeed do one thing. So we've got a new playlist on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/smAshlight/playlists. You can find all of our playlists there. And I just wanted to pump the new one, which is Do One Thing. I apologize for the low audio on it. Thanks for that commenter who caught that. I forgot to place my mic in front of my face. It was up above my head like this when I was making the video. Let us know if you'd like us to re-release that one. We'll probably just leave it alone. Again, sorry for the low audio on that one. And again, this is a YouTube live stream exclusive. So please leave us your comments. And don't forget to press like, subscribe, share, and notify. Tell your friends and your foes about the channel. Thanks everybody who leaves comments, etc. And let's put your comments on the screen. None yet. So let's get into talking about some subject matter here. What's been going on with you lately? Have you noticed some crazy opportunities? Have you noticed opportunities to demonstrate leadership during a global pandemic? Have you noticed people utterly clueless about things like science, trying to explain to you why masks work and things like this? Well, here at smAsho.com, we prefer facts over fraud. We prefer communication over imagination. And we are alt tech, so make sure you visit our homepage if you haven't done so, smAsho.com. You can find our social media there. There's exclusive content on all the social media sites. You can find our stores as well as our smAsho forum there. It's all free currently. And we will eventually have a paywall section for members only. We'll even do a 1-year annual subscription thing where there will be some sort of a piece of merch similar to Stephen Crowder's Mug Club, Daily Wires, Leftist Tears, Tumblr, etc. We'll hook you up with a piece of merch for signing up for a full year. And we'll include exclusive content there. Before we move on, let's take a moment to thank our patrons. Here at the smAsh News Network, our patrons are the true source of funding for the content, as we make just this side of nothing to put the videos on YouTube. I think we may have received a raise in the past year. I think we're getting about 3 cents per hour to make these videos now, instead of about 2 cents per hour. So in any case, thanks to all of you viewers, but especially to our patrons. Please consider being a patron. You can sign up at patreon.com/smashomash. There are multiple tiers there, ranging from $3 a month to $15 per month. And our patrons are the ones who receive the first alerts, as well as all kinds of media and so on. So if you want to be the first people in the world to receive space weather alerts and so on from us, patreon.com/smashomash is the place to do it. Thanks again to our patrons. Now today we'll look into some interesting news stories. And again, this is a YouTube live exclusive. Let's go to a mainstream website. How about NBC News? I'm sure our viewers love NBCnews.com. So let's see what kind of fascinating stories are headlined at NBCnews.com. And their top headline is Texas Power Crisis Points to Challenges of Renewable Energy Future. So let me just show you what it is that they're talking about here. There are a lot of frozen wind turbines in Texas, and this whole area down here in the southeast portion of Texas is currently experiencing a vicious ice storm. And according to poweroutage.us, still over 2.8 million power subscribers out of power, an additional 168,000 of tracked customers out of power in Oregon, as well as power outages in Louisiana, Alabama. That's Mississippi, not Alabama. Ohio, West Virginia, Virginia, and Kentucky. So lots of power outages, pointing to the problems of, quote, renewable and, quote, energy. What's the problem with renewable energy? Well, the problem is, first of all, we require fossil fuels to build the systems. So, sure, it's renewable in that once the systems are in place, there is a low carbon footprint. However, were you aware that these things are full of oil? Were you aware that these 3 gigawatt wind turbines require 1 gigawatt of power even to run, because they have to make sure that they run at a certain speed? Were you aware of how many fossil fuels are required to build wind turbines? Were you aware at how bad they operate when they get frozen? There was a great photo going around on Twitter depicting a helicopter which is built by and fueled by fossil fuels, spraying some sort of chemicals onto the wind turbine to de-ice it, and the chemicals were also made from fossil fuels. Turns out it might not be so sustainable. So Germany's having problems also with its solar panels as they are covered in snow. And we're seeing some extreme conditions all around the world right now. Not necessarily an indication that the planet is so hot. Now, as Michael Knowles astutely notes on Twitter, and let me read Michael Knowles' quote. I retweeted this one. If you don't follow me on Twitter, check me out at twitter.com/smAshomash. Everything's at smAshomash if you haven't figured it out yet. Thanks to our new followers over there. And Michael Knowles of Daily Wire can be quoted as tweeting the following. Lots of people are citing this cold spell as evidence that, quote, global warming and, quote, fears are overblown, but that's just ignorant. If Democrats have told us once, they've told us 1,000 times, any and all weather events, warm, cold, rainy, dry, and temperate, prove global warming. What say you, the viewer? Is it so cold where you are that it's evidence that it's hot? Have you noticed the global snowfall totals over the past 3 years? Let's show you where it currently is. And if you know anything about geology, you may realize that snow is associated with the glaciation cycle. Why? Well, snow is associated with the glaciation cycle because of the Earth's albedo. So when we say albedo, we're talking about the reflectivity. And I believe the way it works is a perfect mirror would be an albedo of 1.0. In other words, reflecting all light back. And since things like regular dirt and rocks and plants and even the ocean absorb much more infrared radiation from the sun, snow and ice reflect a lot of infrared radiation back into space. So you could imagine the Earth's albedo must be pretty high right now, because there is the current situation when it comes to snow cover. So practically the whole planet above 30 degrees north latitude. No, wait. Above 50 degrees north latitude, the planet has almost 100% coverage except for the British Isles. So Ireland and England aren't totally coated, although the Thames has frozen. And I've been stating since the late 1980s, when I started studying climate science, that a frozen Thames is a real canary in the coal mine for the fact that the entire northern hemisphere may get colder. So that is certainly a significant issue, and we covered it in previous daily space weather videos. Let me put your chats up on the screen. If anybody's leaving comments, thanks for leaving a comment. smAsho staff. So anyway, here's the current state of affairs when it comes to, and thanks for commenting also, Carl. We'll put that on the screen momentarily. Good morning to you too, sir. You can see the snow cover here in the northern hemisphere. That is snow depicted in white and ice depicted in yellow. Do you think the Arctic is melting, folks? Look at the area around the Kamchatka Peninsula over here. Boy, that looks awfully melted, doesn't it? How about the North Pole area? It looks pretty icy to me. Look at all the sea ice associated with Antarctica. Lots of stories on the internet depicting nonsense about melting ice sheets and melting glaciers and melting ice caps. By the way, a glacier that is calving, meaning falling into the ocean, is not evidence that the glacier is shrinking. That's evidence that the glacier is growing. When glaciers shrink, they recede uphill and they melt from the ocean up the mountain. They don't fall into the ocean. That's an indication that there is excess snow accelerating the pushing motion of the glacier into the ocean. Calving events are not associated with shrinking glaciers. Next, I want to bring up the snow mass balance. And there you can see the snow mass balance is well over 1 standard deviation above the 30-year average. And the 30-year average has actually been bumped up in the past 3 years because in the winters of 2017 to 2018, 2018 to 2019, and 2019 to 2020, we saw 2 standard deviations above normal. So instead of 1 standard deviation, you're looking at 2 standard deviations. I did forecast this year to level out, and we have not seen as much snow in terms of the Northern Hemisphere snow mass balance. Keep in mind this does not include mountains. And as you may be well aware, we see lots of snow in mountains. So in any case, snow is one of the positive feedback mechanisms for a thing that we call global cooling. When we see glaciation events, there is indication of it in the geologic record as having started with lots of snow. Because if the snow doesn't melt in the summertime, folks, you can get stuck into a snowball Earth scenario. Look at how much snow is over the U.S. right now. This is the Rutgers snow extent snow and ice chart. And another view here. It's looking pretty snowy. Is it so hot that it's cold where you're located? Again, leave us comments if there are news stories you would like us to cover. Let's go back to NBC News here. And see what else. Will they be covering Biden's gaffes? Here's another headline from NBC News. After Trump's acquittal, some supporters are eager to see him on the ballot in 2024. Are you eager to see Trump on the ballot in 2024? Were you a Trump supporter during the 2016 presidential primaries? Also, we are interested in what's going on in your state. Are you still locked down? Are you still required to wear a mask everywhere you go? Here in Pennsylvania, we have some of the most ridiculous and draconian measures in the whole country. Pennsylvania, what you would call an S-hole state, thanks to tyrannical COVIDiot Governor Tom Wolf. Now, while there are some calls to impeach the governor, I highly doubt that's going to happen, as the Pennsylvania state GOP legislators have been looking weaker than clock radio speakers for the past year. So we'll see what happens with that. Let's see what kind of headlines we have on The Blaze. TheBlaze.com, Glenn Beck's website, as he saw the writing on the wall long before we did and built his own TV station, radio station, website, etc. Bill Gates says all rich nations should move to 100% synthetic beef to combat climate change, which is ridiculous because what he's doing is he's tying carbon dioxide to the climate, which is not supported by any geologic records, It's complete nonsense. How come it was so warm during the Minoan warm period when there were very low levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere? Was that because the Minoans were driving SUVs at like 3000 BC or whenever the Minoan Empire was the thing? Top headline on theblaze.com is Family files federal lawsuit after out-of-state bounty hunters raid their New York home without a warrant while police looked on. Ouch. Have you noticed some issues arising with the Fourth Amendment, folks? Have you noticed people expecting you to give out medical information because of the pandemic? Have you noticed people with absolutely zero concern about what it says in the Constitution? Personally, I think it's radical to attempt to do things that refute the Constitution. What say you? Leave us a comment. Let us know. Now, what else do we have on the Blaze here? Ingenuity software not meant for a pandemic. That didn't stop some school districts from using it anyway. Trump blasts McConnell as a, quote, hack, end quote, who lacks, quote, political insight, end quote. As Mitch McConnell voted to acquit Trump, and then he blasted him before the Senate chamber, making himself look like a complete hypocrite. Please leave us a comment with your favorite political hypocrite. By the way, Joe Biden has announced that he will not make that happen in reference to canceling $50,000 in student loan debt. Gwyneth Paltrow details her long-lasting COVID-19 symptoms. Now, this sounds interesting. Let's see what this is all about. Gwyneth Paltrow, the owner of Goop.com, where you can buy snake oil and other nonsense, such as vaginal crystal eggs, apparently had long period COVID. Let's see what this is all about. A quote from Gwyneth. I had COVID-19 early on, and it left me with some long-tail fatigue and brain fog, Paltrow wrote in her recent post on her website, Goop. Again, that's goop.com, Goop.com. If you'd like to buy some overpriced nonsense merchandise, feel free. If you'd like to buy some real stuff, head to our smAshlight.com homepage and click on our merch shops. Go tell your friends and your foes about how Fauci committed fraud, for example, or perhaps about how Google is biased, or what about to commemorate the dimension of the year 2020, hell. People who experience symptoms for more than 2 months after being diagnosed with the coronavirus are often called, quote, long haulers, end quote. Dr. Robert Glatter. Are you gladder that I'm doing a story including Robert Glatter? An emergency physician at Lenox Hill Hospital in New York City explained to Today in July that many COVID-19 patients have symptoms that go on for months, from fever to aches and chills and shortness of breath and generalized fatigue. If you're willing to give up personal health information, let us know if you've had COVID. Some of our viewers, I think, have. I won't call them out specifically, but some of our viewers have had COVID. And frankly, I don't know of anybody that had any sort of an extreme result. Paltrow said she had tests done in January that showed she had really high levels of inflammation in the body. She consulted with Dr. Will Cole, who advised her to a version of a protocol he outlines in his book, Intuitive Fasting. So apparently, fasting, maybe it helps. Let's see. It's keto and plant-based, but flexible. I've been having fish and a few other meats, and I fast until 11 a.m. every day, she wrote, adding that she's used to doing cleanses, but her current dietary plan is more, quote, freewheeling, end quote. So that's another quote from Gwyneth. She said she's been cooking a lot as a result, but all without sugar and, of course, no alcohol. Now, I've actually had some issues, not from COVID, but from wearing these pathetic and ineffective masks. So, now this particular one says Tom Wolfe is a COVIDiot. And these kind of masks are effective at one thing. They're effective at preventing surgeons from breathing into the wounds of surgical patients, as it directs your breath to the sides and up and down instead of straight forward, which means if you're standing next to somebody in the grocery store and you cough, for example, your cough will just go to the side instead of forward. So everybody's used to not coughing on people, but you got to get used to perpendicular coughing if you expect to protect them all. Make sure you protect them all, folks. You're going to go out and save everybody's life by putting a surgical mask on, okay? Pardon the sarcasm. What a bunch of nonsense. Now, I've owned a real elastomeric respirator since the late 90s because I used to be a hardwood floor tech. And I can still refinish your hardwood floor. If you're located in the local area, drop me a line. We will hook you up with a refinish big time. Or even if you want an install, I got a guy. So I've owned an expensive elastomeric respirator, the kind that has the two filters down here in the bottom. And that kind of respirator will protect you from viruses, unlike these surgical masks. But in any case, to share my personal story, I've still got a rash around my ears, on my neck, under my chin, and a little bit on my face yet, but it's mostly just in this area right here because my employer required me to wear a certain kind of mask for about 6 months, and now I have this ongoing situation. I mean, I haven't worn that kind of mask for months because the doctor I visited recommended that I don't, with obvious reasons. So we're not exactly sure if I've developed some sort of autoimmune response to technical fabrics like polyester and polypropylene, or if I've inhaled a bunch of plastic flock material which is still in my system, or if there's some other kind of issue that it's triggered, but we're not exactly sure what's happened there. It's quite weird. And it's all because of wearing masks. So I may be sending my employer a massive bill for this because it's a pretty serious problem. In any case, let's just see what else we have here. Paltrow went on to list several products she is using that are available on her website, including several supplements, which she claimed are mostly in service of a healthier gut. So that brings me to another point. We've actually increased our consumption of sauerkraut. So sauerkraut and kimchi are two great examples to help nourish your gut flora. What your gut flora hates is things like Tums. Your gut flora wants an acidic environment. And so one of the ways you can help yourself stay healthy, folks, is to make sure that your mouth is basic, because dental infections are associated with acids. So you know that foul taste you get in your mouth after you drink orange juice? Sometimes you get a lingering sour taste. That's bacteria in your mouth. You should do a mouthwash with a mixture of baking soda and kosher salt, and that will remove the acidic environment from your mouth and increase the longevity of your dental situation. Dental infections are caused by some of the same bacteria that you have in your gut. So you don't want those bacteria on your skin. You don't want them on your throat. You just want them in your gut, where an acidic environment is required to nourish those good bacteria. So those are some of the ways you can help with your gut flora. Also, lots of leafy green vegetables and so on assist with the health of your gut flora. And really, your intestinal tract is the largest aspect of your immune system. I won't talk about what Gwyneth is saying about what products that she uses. I'm sure there's plenty of material to read online. Do things to nourish your gut flora. Let's check out another non-leftist news source. It's Ben Shapiro's page, dailywire.com. Top headline there is, while millions not in school, Biden tells girl that kids are, quote, safest group of people in the world. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Let's go in depth. Remember, folks, reading headlines does not mean you've read an article. don't assume that the article contains the information that it says in the headline. As you may have noticed, if you're watching this video on YouTube, you may notice a little bit of clickbaiting. Yeah, maybe even a lot of clickbaiting. Have you noticed people that just outright lie in their thumbnails and titles? Well, we try to avoid doing that. In fact, we almost exclusively avoid doing that. I typically only do it when I'm doing a video about the fact that clickbaiting is disingenuous. So again, thanks for leaving comments here. Christine, who says, all our politicians seem to be out only for themselves. The American people are here just to benefit them, and that is what they are trying to protect. Had it in December 2019, terrible. You mean you had COVID in December 2019? I wouldn't rule out the possibility. Anyway, Biden told a young girl during a CNN town hall on Tuesday night that she didn't need to worry about the coronavirus because kids do not get it, quote, very often, end quote, and that kids were the, quote, safest group of people in the world, end quote. Biden made the remarks as backlash has started to build against his administration over the fact that millions of students are not physically back in school, engaging in in-person learning. And once again, this brings me to the point of unintended consequences. If the cure is worse than the disease, folks, you don't apply the cure. You find a different cure, or you hope that things improve on their own. Let me repeat that. If the cure is worse than the disease, you don't apply the cure. So I don't know. Do you think causing trillions of dollars of economic damage and all kinds of other strife, such as taking people out by requiring nursing homes to accept COVID patients, is a good cure for COVID-19? Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. So yeah, I've got personal stories about COVID. Pennsylvania's top COVIDiot, Governor Tom Wolf, has made my working environment into a living hell. And if you don't know what I do when I'm not doing this, one of the things I do, one of my other jobs, is associated with food safety testing. So I work for an organization that does laboratory testing on food. And let's just say that the requirements in Pennsylvania, and indeed the requirements from our company, which are based on all kinds of international guidelines. We have an international company that owns our subsidiary and so on. And we have ridiculous guidelines. So, for example, in our laboratory, whenever anybody gets a COVID diagnosis, the laboratory goes into a semi-lockdown state where we can only enter the building through one door. Our security passes only work at the one door, and we've got to go in and get our temperature checked at least once a day, and there's some sort of a survey we're supposed to fill out, and yeah. But the worst thing is the mask wearing. So it's caused obvious, provable physical issues with me, and I'm not sure exactly where this will lead. It may lead to a large legal settlement, as we're not even exactly sure what's going on or why it is that I'm all itchy. So like Gwyneth, my inflammatory markers have been up, and I haven't contracted COVID that I'm aware of, as I see no need to get tested unless I show actual symptoms of COVID, because testing people who are asymptomatic is a ridiculous and nonsensical idea. Let's see what else we have to see on the Daily Wire. Biden falsely claims that we didn't have a vaccine when we came into office. According to Disney, anything that offends the left is a problem. My clients work hard to please them. How about making actual art? How about that? Kamala Harris taking calls with foreign leaders on behalf of Biden, according to a report, probably because Biden, like his predecessor with those giant coattails, Barack Obama, is unable to put together a coherent sentence off teleprompter. Saying the word over and over again in a sentence is not good public speaking. So I don't know. I mean, people still claim that Barack Obama is a brilliant, brilliant public speaker and that he's so nuanced, which is why he says and more than he says any other word. I'm not convinced. I think Obama is unable to compose a coherent sentence off teleprompter. Let's see what HuffPo's got to say, as they're probably suffering from Trump withdrawal syndrome. Oh, here we go. Look at this. I'm sure this won't be propaganda. Republicans unite against democracy. By the way, you don't live in a democracy if you're an American. We live in what's called a constitutional republic, where we elect officials to do the bidding of the voters. Now, while I'm aware that those officials are not doing the bidding of the voters, you know, no taxation without representation and all that, while I'm aware they're not doing the bidding of the voters, that is the way the government is supposed to work. So when economic illiterates like Bernie Sanders or Indian chieftains Native American chieftains, or wait, I think they're called original Americans now. Original American chiefs and squaws like Liz Warren say, well, never mind. Let's just move on here. Yes, my job has a very high level of efficacy. So you may have heard about just-in-time shipments, and just-in-time shipments are something that can go away faster than you could blink. If our company makes a small mistake, you could have an entire series of truckloads held up. You could have a whole series of grocery stores in an entire region not stocked with a certain product as a result of our company screwing up or our clients screwing up. For example, if we returned a false positive for, let's say, salmonella. If we returned a false positive for salmonella, we could cause an entire factory full of product to be sent back or destroyed. The liability is massive. And we're in the realm of risk management. So, you know, food safety, we're a laboratory that we're actually the world's largest food safety testing laboratory, and I won't bring up the name of my employer as I won't have particularly nice things to say about them. But since I don't list my employer in any social media, I can say whatever I want. And frankly, if they want to fire me over it, feel free. So that's what's going on with that. And let's click on HuffPo's, the Huffington Post's article here about how Republicans have emerged from the Capitol insurrection, united against democracy. Sounds like nonsense to me. Let's see what Ariana's website has to say. And this article is written by Travis Waldron, who may be percolating a cauldron of Waldron nonsense. 7 Republican members of the U.S. Senate voted to find former President Donald Trump guilty of inciting the January 6th insurrection, which, by the way, was not an insurrection. Nobody was calling for the overthrow of the government at the U.S. Capitol that left 5 people dead. By the end of the week, 6 of the 7 may have faced censures from local and state Republican parties back home because of those votes. Oh, no. They should be scared about what's going to happen in their home district while making votes on the federal scale. Together with 10 Republican House members who voted to impeach Trump, the 7 GOP senators made Trump's second impeachment the most bipartisan in American history. Check it out. I just wanted to cite some illiteracy. Starting a sentence with a conjunction will not be grammatically correct ever. So congratulations, Travis Waldron, on that. Perhaps learn to write before becoming a reporter. If those votes foreshadowed a looming civil war within the GOP, the hasty efforts to censure anyone who crossed Trump are a good indication of which side has the larger army. Sounds like a bunch of alarmist, inflammatory nonsense. like oh so many things that happen at the Capitol. And thanks again for leaving comments, Christine and Carl. I have found... No, wait. Our laboratory does not test for COVID in food. So that is not a thing. I have heard stories about COVID being found in food. And depending on what kind of test you're doing, you could find COVID any place. So we did definitely cover a story last year about how COVID was found in salmon. So I assume it was processed salmon. I'm not exactly sure. But depending on what test you're doing, you may find components of the COVID in just anywhere. I mean, your carpet might have COVID. It's not really relevant to anything. And this is why asymptomatic people shouldn't even be getting tested. You may be well aware of the inaccuracy of tests. You may be well aware of the ineffectiveness of lockdowns and mask mandates at flattening the curve. So we've been flattening the curve for over a year now, I believe. We were told we'd have to wear masks for 2 weeks, and a lot of folks are still wearing them. And let's just check some more news stories here. Have you heard about the price of Bitcoin? It's been reaching all-time highs. I don't know if it's been over 50,000, but I know it was certainly around $50,000 per Bitcoin, and it's currently at $51,200 plus per Bitcoin. I'm going to show you the 1 year graph here. Maybe I'll show you a couple graphs. Here's the 1 year graph from cnbc.com/markets. I think that's up. There we go. So Bitcoin at another all-time high. Now, remember, folks, don't chase a tiger. Buy low, sell high. That's all I have to say about that. Don't take that as investment advice. I am no longer licensed to give investment advice. Let's see what Ethereum is quoted at on the Coinbase exchange. Ethereum also just off of all-time highs. Let's bring up the all data chart here. Yep, well above the previous highs, which were only at about $712 per Ether, now at over $1,800 per Ether. Is it a devaluation of the dollar? Is it an increase in the valuation of the crypto, or is it a combination of both? Well, the answer is that it is a combination of both. Oh, one other thing. I wanted to also look at stellar lumens because I just recently purchased some. I bought them at about 63 cents per stellar lumen, and I've lost some money, but I may actually increase my position on this. So stellar lumens. Here it is on the Coin Metrics exchange, below 50 cents per stellar lumen. So now this is pretty volatile. This has got about a $12 billion market cap. So this would be a mid cap if it were a stock. It is a speculative investment like all crypto. I do not believe cryptocurrency to be a store of value. And if you look at the 1 week chart, I sold very, very close to the high. How about the 1 month chart? I sold very close to the high. It was actually at about $63. Keep in mind this is only showing the market close. I sold at about 63 cents per stellar lumen. And I may get back in if this continues to drop, as I expect this to go up again. So no more information about stellar lumens there. Maybe we'll put up some more financials here. Let's see what else we have to cover. We'll tell you briefly about futures and any major headlines at cnbc.com. So futures include first of all, Asian markets. The Nikkei is down 0.5%. The Shanghai index is up 1.43%. The Shenzhen is up 1.75%. The Hang Seng is up 1.1%. In European markets, the FTSE and the DAX are both down, just marginally. The CAC is up 0.03%, so that's flat. And let me bring up pre-market conditions. Here's the pre-market trading scenario for the U.S. And it looks like the Dow is slated to open flat. The S&P slated to open flat. And the NASDAQ to open slightly down 23.25 points. And these are all at very high levels, folks. I don't know exactly where. Let's see. I'll give you a quote for silver and gold real quick before moving into some more news stories. By the way, oil is over $60 per barrel now. No surprise there, as the demand for fossil fuels increases around the world due to extreme cold temperatures, not only here, but also in Europe. Oh, and speaking of cold temperatures, after this, we're going to talk about the Elfstedentocht. But first, gold is at $17.90 and 40 cents, $1,790 and 40 cents. Silver is at $27.20 per ounce. Please leave us a comment if you remember when I was talking about silver when it was below $12 per ounce just under a year ago. Now, if you've ever heard of the Elfstedentocht, well, the Elfstedentocht is the 200-kilometer ice skating race. So it's the 11-city tour, the Elfstedentocht, an event taking place with Dutch speed skaters. Well, it's an international event. But in any case, we may actually have an Elfstedentocht this year. Hoping it happens. The 200-kilometer tour has been showing up in the news. So let's see what the latest is here. 5 days. Here's one on only 19 hours ago. According to the Netherlands Times, definitely no Elfstedentocht during the coronavirus pandemic. So that's sad news, folks. I was hoping to see another Elfstedentocht. They were talking about possibly limiting it to only world-level skaters. Looks like that's not going to be happening. According to the NL Times, which is nltimes.nl, the Dutch newspaper, the Dutch news website at least, there will definitely be no Elfstedentocht in Friesland this winter. Wiebe Wieling, chairman of the Koninklijke Vereniging der Friese Elfsteden, reiterated on Tuesday the major event is not possible in the coronavirus pandemic with the current restrictions. For 100%, there is no doubt about that, Wheeling said to NOS. We can't because of corona, and for that reason, we wouldn't get permission for it. So I guess the Elfstedentocht is not going to happen. Sad news for speed skating. Let's head to one more news source before we close things out. I'll be checking out ZeroHedge.com, one of the least busted names in news, a bit like the smAsh News Network. And by the way, if you enjoy the content, please press like and subscribe. Increase the chances that we may be able to afford a fire extinguisher instead of me constantly putting out fires with my super breath. No, it's not bad breath. It's super breath, like Superman's breath. Yes, I'm very loud, and I've got a lot of wattage output. So it looks like there's been a bit of a bond sell-off. Have you heard about the Ebola breakouts in West Africa? The WHO has issued an alert to 6 African nations after the recent outbreaks. There have been some deaths. Navy scrambles deployed sailors who've tested. Navy scrambles as deployed sailors test positive for COVID-19 on previously stricken carrier. So another outbreak on the USS Theodore Roosevelt. National Guard expected to stay in D.C. through fall of 2021. Anybody have any idea why? I know it's because of the very, very scary and spooky white nationalists that are going to take over the universe. They're very scary. They're very spooky. So if you haven't seen D.C. lately, here's one of the scenes. Your nation's capital, full of guys in balaclavas wearing multicam camouflage, walking around barriers and razor wire, and apparently accosting reporters for simply looking at their phones while near the barriers. Christine, I don't think that the hyperactivity is from the cayenne pepper in the coffee. It's just because of having an extremely high metabolism. It even makes me sleep less. So one of the many reasons to get a pro athlete scale of fitness is just simply because of efficiency. I am a huge fat-burning furnace, and like Gwyneth, I've been fasting every day. So typically what happens with me is, just to give you a little background here into what my dietary situation is like, I usually stop eating all food at about 7 p.m., and then I don't eat anything until like 12 noon, maybe 1 p.m. the next day, and I shove all of my caloric consumption into that 5-hour period. It's usually between more like 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. All of my calories are shoved into that one area. The rest of the day is spent fasting because the benefits are quite incredible. Now, I'm able to go out and do a 40-mile bike ride at a moderate pace without any calories at all. So my typical breakfast consists of 0 calories. 1 to 2 cups of coffee, which often do indeed contain cayenne pepper and cocoa powder. And my vitamin intake includes a sublingual vitamin B12, vitamin E, L-lysine, the amino acid, which is responsible for the production of hormones, enzymes, and antibodies, by the way, and is an essential amino acid, meaning you must get it from food. Some aminos are made in the body. L-lysine is an essential one, which you can only derive from diet. I also take half a multivitamin. Taking half a multivitamin is typically better than taking a whole one, as you'll waste some of the components. I also take a vitamin D and a calcium. I take a vitamin C. I often take MSM, methylsulfonylmethane, in a powdered form. I won't get into the details on that. And let's get back to headlines here. Did I miss any vitamins? I think that's about all. What's going on with Elon Musk talking to Vladimir Putin? Putin reportedly interested in talking to Musk. Not exactly sure what they'll be talking about. Let's see if we can find out. Musk talking about bringing his companies to Russia. And this is what happens, by the way, when you get a socialist government in place. So one of the many, many unintended consequences of people doing incredibly stupid things is that assets flee the country. So yes, when you increase the minimum wage to $15 per hour, assets flee the sector. As many McDonald's employees found out in California, when one city raised its minimum wage to $15 per hour, those employees were replaced overnight by automated ordering kiosks. Well, one of the many, many aspects of increasing government control over your life is to cause assets to flee the country. So a lot of the math that economically illiterate politicians such as AOC and Bernie Sanders do not include the fleeing of assets. Kremlin spokesperson said on Monday that Russian President Vladimir Putin was interested in tech billionaire Elon Musk's proposal that the two men chat on the audio chat app Clubhouse. Yes. It raised a lot of questions from investors, namely, what would the optics be like if a major company CEO with ties to the U.S. space program reached out and made the same offer? Yeah. It's pretty serious. According to Netflix and Lamp, a Twitter account, which I have done no vetting on at all, it's just on the article, Elon Musk has access to U.S. military secrets and more skeletons in his closet than a medieval ossuary. Putin is the world's grand master of compromat. What could possibly go wrong? Interesting story there about space, featuring Elon, who wants to sequester carbon, by the way. He wants to pay $1 million for carbon sequestration, one of the stupidest ideas in the history of mankind. Almost as dumb as the idea that carbon dioxide mitigates the climate, the idea that we need to scrub carbon out of the atmosphere. An absolutely 100% moronic idea. And I think we're going to close things out here. Let me just see if there are any more interesting stories here. Leave us any other comments you may want covered on the video. I'll read them aloud if they're not particularly obscene. By the way, conspiracy theorizing may soon get you labeled as a, quote, domestic terrorist, end quote. Syria reaching near zero hour. Now, one of the problems with Syria is that it doesn't have a central bank, which causes countries that have central banks to hate Syria because their monetary system includes sound money. Whether it's backed up by gold or other assets, I have no idea. But I have insight into Syria because I'm an honorary member of a family where half of the family came from Syria. And I won't go deeper into that on this video. We don't want it to be too long. So we're hoping Texas gets its power grid issues solved. Shout out to all of our viewers from Texas. Leave us a comment if you're viewing on a battery-operated device since you have no power. If you're freezing, please get to some place that's warm. We don't want our viewers to freeze into a solid block of ice. Iran to block nuclear inspections starting next week if U.S. doesn't drop sanctions. Frankly, I think the U.S. should drop sanctions, but I won't get into that. I don't want the government interfering in the economy. That's all I need to say about that. UK Electoral Commission rejects Black Lives Matter political party bid, says may mislead voters. So I guess they were trying to form a Black Lives Matter party in the UK. Sounds like another absurd and silly idea. What an inane, silly, ridiculous idea. Most give up Twitter and booze for Lent. I'm not giving up Twitter. I'll still be there at twitter.com/smAsho. Before we close things out, I'm going to show you one product. And you can link to it at smAshomash.com, our own website. And we are alt tech, by the way. We will not censor you. So if you put anything legal on the forum, we will not censor you. Don't spam. Don't do anything illegal like death threats or, questionable images, things like that. Don't do anything like that. We will not censor you. We are alt tech. So we've got a bunch of merch and the latest ultra high-res merch. And let me tell you, it is some high-res merch. You can find it at redbubble.com/people/smAshomash. Today's featured product is the Smash of Hazard. So another ultra high-res image. This features the sun in ionized helium, 304 angstroms, along with the Smash of Hazard logo. Again, you can link to all this stuff at smAshomash.com. There are all kinds of products there. So check it out. Help support the channel that way. If you need some merch, perhaps a Smash of Hazard miniskirt, or maybe a phone case. But in any case, let's put your chats back up on the screen here and close things out. I'll let it scroll through one more time. And then I'll play our closing music and call it a day. And again, even if you're not viewing live, leave us a comment anyway. We read all comments, no matter how ridiculous and silly they are, no matter how much they mischaracterize me and call me a liar. We'll let you say whatever you want. Please try not to make a fool of yourself on the comments. And thanks for showing up, Colin Colenso and Mr. Keebler. Mr. Keebler, one of our favorite Smashs of Hazard. In any case, thanks again for tuning in, folks. Remember, press like and subscribe. Press share. Tell your friends and your foes about the channel and the content. We'll see you next time. I've been your host, Dan, the Vanishing Dan, a.k.a. smAsho, curator and president and editor-at-large of Smash News Network, least busted name in news.